In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was not a man. He was a god among mortals. His power was absolute, his kingdom vast, his life's goal to conquer even death.
For his journey to the afterlife, he required a resurrection machine, a ladder to stars.
The grand vision. A perfect, gleaming mountain of stone. A pyramid to last forever. The pharaoh summoned his most brilliant mind, the vizier and chief architect, the overseer of works. Together, they reviewed sacred texts and designs, seeking architectural perfection for a god's tomb. The location had to be perfect, the west bank of the Nile, the sacred land of the setting sun. The architects made a pilgrimage to the site, a desolate plateau of rock and sand. Using the stars themselves, they aligned the project to the 4 cardinal points with divine precision. A foundation ceremony was held, with the pharaoh himself consecrating the holy ground for his tomb. The plan was not just a tomb, but a huge complex with temples and causeways. Blueprints were drawn on papyrus, detailing every chamber, passage, and hidden corridor within. The architects faced an impossible challenge: how to build a mountain without modern tools. The architects faced an impossible challenge: how to build a mountain without modern tools. Their answer lay in 2 things: limitless human power and absolute, unparalleled Egyptian ingenuity. The greatest construction project in the history of the world was about to begin. An entire city was built from scratch near the pyramid site to house the workforce.
This was not a city of slaves, but of skilled craftsmen, masons, and paid laborers.
Tens of thousands of men were recruited from farms and villages all across the kingdom. They were organized into divisions, with proud names like the Drunkards of Menkaure. Their payment was not in gold, but in bread, beer, and the honor of building for their god. Blacksmiths worked day and night, forging thousands of soft copper chisels and tools. Other workers shaped hard dolerite rocks into pounders to hammer away at the stone. The main quarry was right beside the pyramid, a vast pit of yellow limestone. Workers cut deep channels into the rock, exploiting natural fissures to break blocks free. Wooden levers were used to pry the massive, 2-ton blocks from the quarry floor. For the shining outer shell, they needed a finer stone, brilliant white Tura limestone. This required a dangerous journey across the Nile to deep, underground tunnel mines. And for the king's chamber, they needed something eternal, indestructible red granite. This was the hardest challenge, quarried 500 miles south at the site of Aswan.
The annual flooding of the Nile was the key to transport, a gift from the gods.
The massive granite blocks were loaded onto enormous wooden barges for the journey north. A network of man-made canals brought the river's waters right to the pyramid's base. On land, the blocks were heaved onto immense wooden sledges, built from cedar trees. Teams of hundreds of men dragged the sledges, their path slicked with water to reduce friction. The pyramid began to rise, layer by perfect layer, with astonishing mathematical precision. To lift the stones, they built enormous ramps of earth, rubble, and baked mud brick. To lift the stones, they built enormous ramps of earth, rubble, and baked mud brick. The exact design is a mystery. It may have been one long ramp, or a spiral. As the pyramid grew taller, the ramp had to grow longer and higher with it. Slowly, the internal passages and chambers began to take shape within the massive structure. The majestic Grand Gallery was built, a soaring corridor with a brilliant, corbelled ceiling. The Queen's Chamber was constructed, a secret room hidden deep within the pyramid's heart. Then came the King's Chamber, lined entirely with the massive, polished granite blocks from Aswan. Above it, 5 stress-relieving chambers were built to protect the room from the crushing weight. The pharaoh's sarcophagus, carved from a single block of granite, was placed inside.
The structure was now a giant, rough, step-sided mountain of tan-colored limestone blocks.
It was time for the final, most glorious phase, the gleaming white casing. The brilliant white Tura limestone blocks were brought to the site and meticulously shaped. Each casing stone was angled perfectly to create the smooth, sloped face of the pyramid. They were set from the top down, a dangerous and delicate high-altitude construction job. The final piece was the capstone, the pyramidion, which may have been covered in electrum. It was raised to the sky and set in place, completing the pyramid's sacred shape. The casing stones were then polished for months until they shone like a mirror.
The finished pyramid gleamed under the Egyptian sun, a dazzling beacon of divine power.
It was a structure so bright, it was said to be visible from the mountains in the east. The work was not over. The mortuary temple at the base was finished and decorated. Here, priests would leave offerings for the pharaoh's soul for centuries to come. After 20 years of labor, the resurrection machine was finally ready for its king. It stood not just as a tomb, but as a testament to human will, engineering, and faith.